Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into an artist who, well, didn't just paint Russia. He kind of invented his own brighter, maybe more beautiful version of it.
We are, yeah. We're talking about Boris Mikhailovich Kustodiev. And, if you've ever looked at a painting and just wish you could step right into that vibrant, happy scene, well, Kustodiev's probably your guy.
He really is. He built this whole imaginary country, right? Filled it with these joyful folk types, merchants, peasants, townsfolk, always cheerful.
Mm-hmm. Our sources call him the unparalleled inventor of Russia's festive life. Think endless fairs, explosions of color, pure good cheer.
There's that great quote from Alexander Benoit, the critic. He said, "The real Kustodiev is the Russian fair, motley colors, barbaric fight of colors, the Russian posad and a Russian village with their harmonicas, gingerbread, decked-out girls, and dashing lads." Captures it perfectly.
And that term, posad,
Yeah.
it's basically the trading quarter, right? The lively commercial hub outside the main fortress. That was his zone.
Exactly. So our mission, our deep dive today, is to trace Kustodiev's journey. He starts as this really promising academic portrait painter,
Hugely promising.
but then he consciously walks away from that, becomes this master of a decorative, idealized, imagined Russian life. And the really incredible part,
Is that he created his most iconic, most vibrant stuff while he was battling this awful illness, basically confined.
it's an amazing story of imagination just completely triumphing over physical limitation.
So Kustodiev, he was born March 7, 1878, down in Astrakhan. His father taught literature, history, logic at the seminary.
Yeah.
But he died young.
Tragic. So it was his mother, Ekaterina Prokhorovna, who really raised him and his siblings.
Yes, widowed at 25 with 4 kids. And she was absolutely key. Sources say she instilled this deep love for culture, for art, and specifically for the local folk traditions.
You can really see those Astrakhan roots in his later work, can't you? The colors, the energy.
Definitely. And the big turning point early on was meeting Pavel Vlasov there in Astrakhan. Vlasov was an artist from St. Petersburg, saw Kustodiev's drawings.
And told him he had real talent.
Exactly. Said, forget the seminary path your father was on. You need to pursue art. Seriously.
So off he went to St. Petersburg. By 1896, he's at the higher art school, studying under Ilya Repin. The Ilya Repin.
The giant of Russian realism.
Ah,
And Repin saw something special in him right away. He actually invited Kustodiev and another student, Ivan Kulikov, to help him with his massive painting, the formal session of the State Council.
wow, that's incredible trust to place in a student.
Huge. And Kustodiev was already showing his own talent, especially in portraiture, even while studying. That portrait of Ivan Bilibin, another student.
The source material mentions he used plastic means to convey Bilibin's style. What exactly does plastic means mean there? It sounds a bit technical.
Right, it's art speak. Basically, think of it as using the way you depict form, volume, even texture, the plasticity of the paint and the form to suggest the subject's inner character, not just their appearance.
Okay, so it's about sculpting the personality with paint, almost.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. And that Bilibin portrait won a gold medal in Munich. International recognition, straight off the bat.
Then there was the Vasily Mate portrait in 1902. More complex, an interior scene.
Right, showing mate with his wife in the background. Very accomplished. That won gold too, later, in Venice in 1907. He had the technique, the virtuosity. He could have been the next big realist portrait guy.
Which makes his diploma work in 1903 so interesting, doesn't it?
Exactly. After all that high-level portrait success, what does he submit? A genre scene. Bizarre in the village.
And he gets his gold medal for that.
Yes. It's like he was signaling right then where his real passion lay. Not with the individual elite figure, but with the bustling collective life of ordinary Russia.
Okay, so that brings us to this big shift around 1906. He'd mastered that academic style, the Repin school, that quick, brilliant brushwork we see in the Mate portrait. So why? Why turn away from something he was clearly so good at towards this flatter, more decorative look?
It seems to have been a deliberate search, I think, for something more permanent, more idealized, both in how he painted and what he painted. He was moving away from capturing a single fleeting moment.
Like the Impressionists might.
Right. Towards building this whole idealized world, a world maybe he felt needed to feel stable, solid, especially with Russia heading into such turbulent times.
And you really see that change in the painting First Fair from 1906. The figures, they're not really set back in deep space, are they? They feel flattened.
Totally flattened, almost like figures on a backdrop or, cutouts. It works like a decorative a piano.
And how did he achieve that look? Was it just the drawing?
Well, the drawing, yes, but also, crucially, his materials. He switched paints. He
Mhm.
started using tempera.
Ah, tempera, not oils.
Right, and tempera, unlike oils, which can sort of darken or change over time, keeps its color intensity. It stays bright, saturated when it dries. That let him get those really joyous, almost overwhelmingly bright decorative effects he wanted.
That's fascinating. So the technical choice is directly linked to the feeling he wanted to create. That smooth surface like enamel or porcelain, as one source put it.
Exactly. It makes the world he's painting feel less like a snapshot of reality and more like a
Yeah.
fixed, perfect ideal, almost eternal, protected.
And this artistic shift happens during a pretty happy time in his personal life, too, right?
Yeah, seems so. He married Yulia Proshinskaya in 1903. He even wrote about how painting while feeling loved just warmed him. She and their kids pop up a lot in his work then.
We see that little impressionist phase around this time, too, influence from France, maybe. Works like Morning or Lilac.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Lilac has his baby daughter Irina in it from 1905. They're full of sunlight, warmth, that happy domestic feeling. Very different from the later, more stylized work.
But this period was also crucial for grounding his later imaginary world, wasn't it? The Terem.
Ah, yes, the Turum, their
Yeah.
country house. He built it in 1905 out in the Kostroma region, near Kinishma on the Volga. They'd spend summers there, May to October.
So he was soaking up that provincial life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Living it. This was the raw material, the direct observation that would later fuel his imaginary Custodia, even when he couldn't physically be there anymore.
That happiness, that stability at the Terem,
Yeah.
it sadly didn't last, physically at least.
Mm.
Around 1911, things took a turn.
Yeah, symptoms started appearing. It turned out to be an incurable spinal cord tumor. He had to go abroad to Switzerland for treatment. And there, just horribly, he was misdiagnosed.
They thought it was bone tuberculosis.
Right, and the treatment was just awful. They put him in this rigid corset from his waist right up to his chin. He was supposed to be completely immobilized, hardly work at all.
Can you imagine, for an artist, the frustration?
Unbearable. He wrote constantly about just longing for Russia, for his family, but especially for his work, for the freedom to paint.
So his imagination basically became his only escape route. How did that confinement actually spark his most famous style, the kupchiki?
Well, it was actually a friend who nudged him. In 1912, his friend Fyodor Notgaft visited him in Switzerland. Knowing how miserable and restricted Kustodiev was, Notgaft just urged him, paint something Russian. Paint the Russia you miss.
And that was it. That lit the fuse.
Apparently so. That suggestion led directly to the first paintings of the Kupchiki, the merchants' wives. The very first ones showed 4 merchants at the fair in Kinishma, a place he knew so well from his Turum days.
So a whole new style, completely exuberant, born out of homesickness, not observation.
Exactly. He wasn't really recording reality anymore. He was directing his memories. Think about that famous 1915 merchant's wife, the standing figure in 1840s clothes.
That was painted entirely from imagination, right? No model.
Completely from imagination. The background too, the Volga River, the little provincial town, those shop signs he loved drawing, it's all composite, pulled from his mind's eye, based on his memories of the Turum summers.
It makes sense then why he pushed back when people called him a naturalist.
Oh, absolutely. He was very clear about it,
Sure.
especially given the chaos happening in Russia then. He famously said, and this is key, "My paintings are a complete illusion. They produce the impression of real life, which I myself have never seen and which never existed."
Wow. So a direct rejection of contemporary reality. He wasn't painting the struggles of the time. He was creating a fantasy of comfort, of celebration. How did people react to that kind of escapism back then?
It was incredibly popular. You have to remember the context war, revolution, hardship. His paintings offered this vision of, well, of joy, and his own health got worse.
He became wheelchair-bound after an operation in 1916.
Yes, confirmed the tumor, permanently confined him to a wheelchair, but his art just got more joyous, more colorful. He painted A Trip to the Tarim in 1918, remembering a journey he could physically never make again. It was like defiance through paint, pure optimism.
That mental strength is just astounding. It allowed him to explore this idealized Russian beauty, too, which sometimes got him into trouble, didn't it? Like the beauty from 1915, his first nude.
Yes, his first major nude. And it wasn't just a nude figure, it was like a whole celebration of folk luxury. This gorgeous gold-haired woman
Yeah,
surrounded
with all the details. The satin quilt, embroidered pillows, the painted chest, this little porcelain figure.
Exactly. And the reaction apparently was intense. Caused a bit of a scandal, but drew huge crowds. People were fascinated.
That critic, Milishevsky, said people saw it as A dream of Russia without storms, without dramas, like an ideal they wanted to cling to as it was vanishing.
Hmm. And Kustodiev doubled down on that idealized vision later, in the 1920s, with his Russian Venus, which is interesting because it seems to have been partly a response to another artist,
Oh, who is that?
Mikhail Larionov. Larionov had painted his Ketsupskaya Venus back in 1912.
And what was Larionov's take? How was it different?
Larionov's style was much rougher, deliberately primitive, sometimes satirical, almost grotesque, kind of a raw, unsentimental view of folk life. So Kustodiev, in response, presents this very naturalistic but also intensely idealized Russian beauty, full of health, joy, vigor, pure.
He wanted to show the positive, idealized version.
Exactly. Apparently, the painting process itself was happy. There's a story that his son helped whip up the soap suds for the bathhouse setting to get it just right.
That's a lovely detail, that connection to simple joy. It makes sense why his friend Petrov Vodkin called him the unparalleled inventor of Russian festive life. He really focused on those rituals.
He absolutely did. Look at merchants drinking tea from 1915. It's not just guys having tea. He saw it as a ritual. He based it on a tavern scene, but said it reminded him of old Novgorod icons. He even includes a St. Nicholas icon in the background and a pussy willow branch.
Signaling Easter is coming.
Right. It's loaded with cultural meaning. And Maslenitsa, Shrovetide, that was his absolute favorite holiday.
His mother said it was because he was born during Maslenitsa week, right? On Wide Maslenitsa Thursday.
Maybe. But he said he loved it because it showed the real soul and character of the Russian people, that energy, optimism, robustness. He saw the national character as fundamentally festive, I think.
And he orchestrated these scenes, didn't he, like a director? The sources talk about his complex winter fair scenes.
Oh yeah, so much going on. There's that great detail in one description. Boys having a snowball fight, a dog watching them, but then in the distance, there's a horse pulling a sleigh and it's straining forward.
Hmm?
Why? Because it can smell the fresh buns being sold at a stall.
Huh. Everything's connected, alive.
Totally. That theatrical sense comes through so strongly, which naturally led him into stage design later on. He did sets for about 40 plays.
Mostly Ostrovsky.
Mostly Ostrovsky, yeah. But the absolute peak was his design work for Leskov's Bloka the Flea in the 1920s.
What was so special about that?
He didn't just design sets. He basically designed the whole feel of the production. He envisioned it as a balagan, a bright, colorful fairground puppet show.
Like his paintings come to life on stage.
Exactly.
Huh?
And apparently the designs were so strong, so complete, that when the director, Alexei Dickey, saw the sketches, he knew instantly the play would work. Kustodiev's vision guided everyone, the director, the composer, the actors. He defined the world. #outro.
Kustodiev died quite young, didn't he? 1927, only 49. When you think about it, he only had about 20 years of active creative life. And so many of those were spent dealing with illness, confined.
It's truly incredible. The sheer volume of work he produced in that time, painting, drawing, graphics, theater design, and the quality, it's staggering.
His friend, Mstislav Dobrizinski, summed it up beautifully, I think. He said that despite the pain, Kustodiev's work just resonates with this amazing energy of joy and happiness, harmony, peace. It provided a supply of vigor, tenderness, and faith in life.
A supply of faith in life. That's
Yeah.
powerful. And he didn't shy away from the whole picture either. There's mention of a painting where he shows the whole cycle, birth with a woman and baby, and then death, represented by a coffin workshop nearby.
Right, so he saw the complexity. The joy existed alongside the hardship, the inevitable end.
So maybe the thought to leave you, our listeners, with is this. Here's a man, Kustodiev, stuck in a chair, often in real physical pain. And he consciously chooses to paint a world that, by his own admission, never existed. But it's a world bursting with this incredible, vibrant happiness.
So, what does that tell us? About the power of our imagination, maybe? Or, about the role art can play in just holding on to faith, finding joy, even when reality feels completely broken.
Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the defiant joy of Boris Kustodiev.